Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Scumdogs Kennel. I'm your host, Chris Williams, and I have another great show. We're going to look at more alien abductions and more alien sightings tonight. But first, while we wait for people to gather in the chat, let me go off and show off some artwork from my own upcoming graphic novel, Scumdogs. All right, here we go. Here is my Extreme 90s cover. This cover I did harken back to the comic books of the 90s. Just had to do that for a moment. This cover I did harken. It looks pretty good, huh? It has pretty much all of my characters on it. Now, Scumdogs, the name of my graphic novel, is a parody comic book. I parody the cartoons we all know and love, cartoons that we used to watch when we were kids. Now, the Scumdogs, actual characters in the book, they're supervillains out to take over the world. See, they used to be professional pro athletes competing in sporting events known as the Scumdog Sports. Sporting events held with humanly powerful monsters as the athletes. See, they're called scum and dogs because they traded in their humanity to become superhumanly powerful monsters. So they're scum dogs. They do it either through science or through some more esoteric means, and well, so you get the idea they're not exactly the nicest guys around because, well, they were willing to go become monsters for money. Well, also to get fame and fortune and stuff. So pretty much a bunch of jerks with superpowers. What happens when they get banned from sports? Well, the Scumdogs then decide to become supervillains. They then decide to take over the world. They fight their arch enemies in the Space Forces, and, well, you get the premise. Now, here you see my two main characters. Deathmug, the purple guy with the metal mask, who's the leader of the Scumdogs. He's an arrogant dictator who's out to take over the world. He's also a parody of various villains from 80s cartoons, who's fighting his archenemy Buick Starpoon, the guy with the pink pompadour hair, who's basically a G.I. Joe parody, mainly of Duke from G.I. Joe. But he's also a parody of he's basically a parody also on the military guy, the kind of military guy who's basically never backs down, who's always insists he's right no matter if he's wrong or is just a complete idiot. That's pretty much Buick Starpoon. But he's also a parody of the space opera hero kind of character, like Zap Brannigan, Captain Kirk, Buzz Lightyear or Buck Rogers, those kinds of characters. And if you notice his uniform, anyone with a similar uniform to him on this cover is part of his team in the Space Forces. All right. And they each have because they're G.I. Joe parodies, each of them has a military specialty. Over here, this guy with the mohawk, his name is Roadhog. His military specialty is that he's an army guy and stuff. Well, This bald guy with the gun down here in the blue uniform, his name is Beach Pounder. His military specialty is that he's a Marine, just another Marine. While this guy back here in the red uniform driving that vehicle, firing off his weapons, his name is Blasting. His military specialty is that he's a heavy vehicle specialist. He's a tanker. Now, this cover is one of 3 different variant covers you'll be able to back when Indiegogo goes live, okay? Now, over here, we have Girl Friday. She's another member of the Wild Rangers. That's the name of Buick Starpoon's team in the Space Forces. She was assigned to work as Buick Starpoon's second in command because while the Wild Rangers fight the Scumdogs and save people, they're also highly destructive idiots that destroy everything in sight. So, to head off criticism, her superiors assigned Girl Friday as Buick Starpoon's second in command and basically try and babysit him and basically try to keep the damage to a minimum. But she hates her job because she hates Buick Starpoon. She thinks he's an idiot, and she hates the fact that her career in the military is over because, well, she's working under Buick Starpoon. All right. Oops. Oh, by the way, hit that like button for me, will you? It really helps me fight the algorithm, so more people can see my videos, as well as please go share this video out on here. Yeah. Also, hit that bell and hit the part of the bell that gives you all future notifications. And please go share this video out on Twitter and Facebook. Here, oops. Let me get this down here. I screwed that up right here. Trying to get this right here. Yeah, let me do this right here. There. Here now we'll look at Death. Let me just do this. Here now we'll look at Death Mug's henchmen, because in all 80s cartoons, the main villain of the cartoon would have henchmen, and they'd be total idiots. These are my idiots. The pink guy down here is Sloppy, and the blue guy with the top up with the blue guy with the top hat is Murder Mouth. They're a parody of every henchman from an 80s cartoon. They're basically complete idiots who destroy everything they touch, and, well, they're going to be fun when you read about them. By the way, my graphic novel is not up on Indiegogo yet. I'm working on it every day, but when it does, go back it. Yeah, go back my Indiegogo Scumdogs when it's up on Indiegogo. All right, here we have Hair Metal Doctor. He's another member of the Scumdogs. He's basically a parody on Dr. Mindbender, a mad scientist from G.I. Joe, but my mad scientist has been crossed over with a hair metal musician. Or should I say he's a parody of G.I. Joe's Dr. Mindbender, a mad scientist. As I said, he's awesome. He thinks of all the machines the Scumdogs use to try and take over the universe. And here we have Miss Breasty Melons, This is Miss Breasty Melons, who's basically a parody on the Baroness from G.I. Joe. But unlike the Baroness, she's a party girl who only wants to have fun. You're going to like her when you read about her in my graphic novel. Now, I showed you the characters and art in my book. You're going to like it when my graphic novel Scumdogs, my graphic novel comes out. So look forward to it. And by the way, the Hair Metal Dr. pinup and the Miss Breasty Melons pinup will be included with other pinups in my graphic novel when you back it, when it's up. And look for these pinups. Well, yeah, look for these pinups from Crypto Fashion. I will try to get them out to you on T-shirts for you to buy as well. So yeah, those are coming. All right, now I looked at this. Let's exit out of this. Now, have you hit that like button for me, folks? Not doing too bad. Tonight, we're going to be looking at more alien abductions and sightings. But first, before we do that, let's go look at some, well, let's go over to Indiegogo. Let's see. Knife Hand, the new Jawbreakers book, has made $49,530 with 28 hours left. That's not too bad. Shia Nimbus Edition Volume 1, Indiegogo exclusive, has made $55,030 with 31 days left. Not bad. 94 Rich Tully's War has made $23,776. That's doing pretty good as well. Feel free to leave me a few chats, folks, because I want to hear from you guys. First Man 2, Learning Curve, has made $12,074 with 26 days left. Earthbound Part 2 has made $39,216. Not bad. Cyberfrog Action Figures has made $285 but $381, so that's good as well. You can back each of these action figures for, well, you can back a few of them for only for $40, but one of them costs, because it costs $75 because it's far bigger. You can get Modern Cyberfrog for, well, $40, and they go as, you can get Heather Swan and 90s Cyberfrog for $40 as well. But the Vespers action figure is $75. So that's not too bad because it's a bigger action figure. Each of them is fully articulated and it just looks good. Let's see. Yeah, Modern Cyberfrog action figure looks damn good. Our hero Turek Wren, as he appears in the current Cyberfrog graphic novel series, Ambassador Payton. He's a hero and stuff like that. Looks damn good, and the action figure looks awesome. It's fully articulated and comes with lots of degrees of articulation and can do a great many things. So you have that to look forward to. Now, each time this campaign reaches a stretch goal, you'll get another perk. So there's that coming as well. So you get a bunch of stuff coming with each of these action figures. So there's that as well. Let's look at this trailer.
When the monster you created comes back, mind if I tell you about my toys? I love this toy, the Modern Cyberfrog action figure. This is the Jewel, Protector of Earth. That is our Cyberfrog. Look at him. I love this toy. He has it within himself to turn back the Vespas, undoing the damage, the poisonous colonization of the Vespas. You can see that we've used this nice, super shiny chromium paint. You are going to love your Cyberfrog toy. The toes all bend like this, super flexible foot. People wanted an ankle rocker so that the foot can go back and forth. We did that as well. We added the ankle rocker. This is all of the articulation that's available for this toy. Now, if we get to $400,000, this is what you're getting. We've set this campaign up with stretch gold, a nice honeycomb stand display with articulated armor. This will get included with your toy. At $450,000, all of the toys get one. At $500,000, we're going to give your frog a total of 3 sets of hands. We've got them sculpted here, gripping hands, and then he's got fists as well. Of course, there's also the additional chicken fist, which those people who signed up for the early email notifications list will be receiving. $600,000, I love this. Let's give your frog an extra swap out head with a toothy grimace. $700,000, this we have to get to. Let's give your frog a nasty bee-stung swap-out head. Ouch, anyone have a Band-Aid? Look at this stinger right through the bottom part of his jaw. But your kid is going to lose it. Now, by the way, these toys, we're going to put them through a process so that they're going to be okay for your kid. They're going to be rated for 14 and up. If you've got an 8-year-old, a 9-year-old, we're going to make sure that these toys are okay for them. So at $800,000, and this is as far as we've gotten, $800,000, let's give your frog some firepower. If you remember Blood Honey, Cyberfrog hooks up with Chelsea. She rapid evolves him just to show him a sample of his capabilities, and he grows a gigantic arm cannon. We've made that cannon. We've made that arm cannon as an accessory, and you will get that added to your package if we get to $800,000 for Cyberfrog. Amazing. Amazing.
All right, that looks pretty good, huh, folks? Looks very good. As I said, I want to hear from you guys. Please leave me a few chats. I want to hear from your ideas. Now, as I said earlier, I was going to look at more alien abductions. Witness to Charles Walton's alien abduction withdraws his account. Walton's abduction soil analysis suggests anomalous event. Alien abductions from the 70s to the 90s, part 1. Looks pretty good. For a number of decades, people have claimed that they have been taken aboard unusual flying craft, often against their will, and examined in alien environments. By strange beings, environments, and stuff like that. Known to those who study unexplained aerial phenomenon, UFO or alien abduction, the earliest UFO literature was essentially void of any reference to such captures or kidnappings. However, beginning in the 1960s, popular books on the subject, John G. Fuller's The Interrupted Journey, began to chronicle the claims of those like Betty and Barney Hill. Well, Betty Hill, a couple who allegedly, they were taken aboard a flying saucer and examined by aliens while returning late one night from a vacation at Niagara. Other books that followed expanded on the narrative of abductions, producing similar reports to that of the Hills, some of which dated prior to that of the 1961 encounter. And before long, a shift in the focus of the UFO community at large was well apparent. Conferences that once showcased Air Force veterans like Major David Kehoe advocating the release of UFO information by the government and civilian researchers, and scientists like J. Allen Hynek seeking trace evidence of landed saucers were replaced by those now taking up the case of the abductees. Harvard psychologist John Mack and an artist-turned-investigator hypnotist Bud Hopkins, as well as those like Whitley Strieber, a successful novelist who eventually came forward with his own abduction experience, both to fanfare and attacks from critics. Then, with the coming of the new millennium, the focus of the UFO community seemed to shift once again, this time moving gradually away from the abduction phenomenon in favor of more nuts and bolts approaches to studying odd things in the skies. What's caused this shift? Has the widespread accessibility to information? Well, nuts and bolts. A lot of people are moving away from nuts and bolts and basically saying that with, abductions and UFO sightings, that there's more of a weird, otherworldly feel to it that's more than nuts and bolts. Almost phenomenon and psychic stuff to more than anything else. But let's get back. Let's get to this. What's caused this shift? Has the widespread accessibility to information sources, perhaps more importantly, opposing viewpoints, led to power-butting researchers following what could be deemed more creatorless lines of thought? Despite interest that persists in a UFO phenomenon, could it also be that once popular abduction literature, after decades of being sustained or even less physical evidence than that which exists in support of UFOs themselves, finally began to collapse inward under the weight of broader scientific scrutiny? Perhaps a combination of factors that have caused this shift away from alien abductions that once held the hearts of so many in the UFO community. In a sense, UFO reporting in the last few decades has taken on a postmodern approach, in the sense that old ideas once taken for granted are now more thoroughly questioned. Some of the better books on the UFO subject to arrive in recent years have focused more exclusively on science, historical analysis, and sometimes just bare bones journalism. Well, let's look at this: UFOs, journals, pilots, and government officials. Well, the record come to mind, as well as go on the record, or go record. As well as my friend David Muller's triangular UFOs, generals, pilots, government officials on the record. Yeah, triangle UFOs, an estimate of the situation. John B. Alexander's PhD's UFOs, Myths and Conspiracies and Realities all come to mind in this regard from the more skeptical side of the equation. Bad UFOs, Critical Thinking About UFO Claims, by Robert Shifter. Shifter. Take a look at famous cases and calls into question how and why caution should be employed by UFO advocates. Occasionally, groups from one camp may criticize the other or hit back in defending their positions. Although, in my opinion, perspectives from both sides of the fence are helpful and necessary in an effort toward looking at the phenomenon objectively. Of course, one thing that renders that the reader of any of the aforementioned books will notice is that there is very little, if any, in some cases, to be said about alleged alien abductions. In such modern examples of UFO literature, we could speculate all day on the reason for this shift. As I've called it, although a more interesting line of inquiry, in my opinion, has to do with its origins in the first place. Where did the idea of alien abductions come from, or at the very least, and so as not to propose that all such claims are to be ruled out of hand, however unlikely they seem, are the cultural predecessors in myth and fiction that might give us an idea that some of the influences behind the strange rise and sinful of what became a fringe movement in an already controversial subject like UFOs. As several researchers have outlined already over the years, the general feature of the alien abduction motif are all common in much earlier literature, including fairy folklore, the British Isles, as well as other mythology around the world. The works of Jacques Vallée come to mind here as to those of Jerome Clark and others. Cultural groups since time immemorial have spoken of gods and spirit folk who occasionally carry, people away. All right. Humans away from the mortal realm, sometimes accompanied by periods of missing time or trip that has been present in alien abductions as early as Betty Hell encounter. All right. Shortly after UFOs assumed their place in the cultural landscape, by the end of the 1940s, claims of encounters with space brothers and other friendly visitors from nearby planets that are now well known to be uninhabited or simply uninhabitable began to appear. These alleged encounters are very different from the claims of abductees. However, most of the friendly aliens of this world were supposedly human-like in appearance, and any Earthling setting foot inside one of their flying saucers did so for his or her own violation. Not so with the abductees. Among those who claim we find such terrors as paralysis and levitation, the methods of extraterrestrials employ to bring their human captives on board. As many modern chronicles of the phenomenon will note, certain similarities exist with the sensations experienced by sufferers of sleep paralysis, a phenomenon that was not as widely recognized by the general public only decades ago. It is also noteworthy that the first known appearance of the alien abduction idea as a print publication occurred years before any allegedly true abduction reports had been publicized. One of the cover stories of October 1953 issue of the Man to Man, a man's pulp magazine known for its adventure stories and occasionally speculative science articles, has been the sensational piece, Are Flying Saucers Kidnapping Humans? This was featured alongside the appetizing feature article, Why People Mutilate Themselves. All the sorts of printing things readers of adventure magazines in the 50s wanted to know, I suppose. Wanted. From the earliest abductions on record occurred after the publication of the aforementioned article, a strange case of Antonio Valley Boers, for instance, that took place in 1957. It wasn't written about until much later. In a similar note, researcher Peter Ruckerson said that he feels that Valley Boers may raise a few red flags since a story with details that were similar to Val Boers' account had been printed in the November 1957 issue of Brazilian periodical this would have placed the publication date after the date Vilas Boas would later allege that the account took place, although he didn't publicly discuss it until well after the articles was published. Hence, it is possible that his story was a fabrication of the later article, could be nevertheless have been its inspiration. Books like Ann Duffel's Skin Rugs to Turn Canyon, Tontuckies actually did outline a series of alleged abductions to have occurred in 1953. However, as with the Antonio Villas Boris affair, the account wasn't written about until 1980. I should note that Whitley Stubbers' book Community also outlines experiences from his childhood, although these likely would have placed them between the late 50s and early 60s. Hence, it is reasonable to assume that the aforementioned article does in fact predate virtually all the modern alien abduction claims. Add to this the countless science fiction magazines from even earlier in the 20th century that feature human beings captured, stripped down, and examined with scientific equipment from fictional alien worlds on their covers, and it becomes hard to avoid the fact that alien abduction meme has already been fairly planted, or maybe we should say implanted in this case, in the public mind by the time stories of real abductions began to appear in books and magazines. There's that to consider. All right. Although my general tone here may sound completely dismissive toward the alien abduction meme, it is not my intention to say that all people who come to related odd experiences, in particular those with unusual aerial vehicles or even their occupants, are liars, frauds, or simply wrong. Frankly, I maintain a certain disdain for those who do resort to the hominism attacks and acquisition, fraud, hoaxes, or money incentives in order to get their points across in case. As I've noted in the past, I have met Travis Walton on a number of occasions, found him to be a delightful person in general. As anyone who has met him would attest, Walton is a kind, friendly person. On many occasions, we've talked the conversation has had with anything but UFOs or abductions. He often gives talks about his experience, where he notes the way its depiction in Hollywood was sensationalized. He wrote a book about his experience, and in addition to selling at events he attends, he is sometimes paid to give his lectures. Strangely, the fact that Travis profits in any way from his experience have sometimes been used as a case against his claims, and doubtful types calling foul and complaining that it's all just a way of making money. To the contrary, Walton's not a full-time UFO celebrity and has had to work for a living like anyone else over the years. Frankly, if I had experienced what Walton says I happened to him back in November 1905, I would have written a book about it too. In short, the complaints that people like Travis Walton do what they do for the money is an old and inaccurate stereotype. And that all too often launched against UFO evidence as a way of delegitimizing their claims. As an author, or at least a few books in the more nuts and bolts side of the UFO question, and say I speak from a degree of experience in this regard, as they are far from profitable ways to make a living. Of course, I can't prove or disprove that Torvalds' claims. All I can say personally is that he is a pleasant individual, and while I am often not convinced, as far as many abduction claims go, there are a few elements to his experience that to me stand out from the rest. Despite having received plenty of critiques over the years, it remains one of the most multiple witness UFO encounters of its kind. This alone sets it apart from a broad majority of more credulous abduction claims, let alone the fact that in Mullen's case, an individual Watton actually did go missing for several days. This is far more than could be said of the majority of similar accounts. And as far as similar incidents go, there is really just one that comes to mind, although seldom discussed in the United States. On generally disparate, Frank Fontaine near Ponderosa, France, in November '79. In a case that bears a few similarities to the Travis Walton situation, perhaps curiously so, to summarize the situation briefly, Fontaine and a pair of friends were planning a trip to the nearby market to sell clothing on the morning of Friday, November 26, 1979. Shortly after 4 a.m., Frederick and his friends observed a light that appeared to be larger than the moon passing behind the Law Justice apartment complex where they lived. Frank went in the direction of the object to get a closer look, and when his friends pursued him minutes later, Frederick's truck was found sitting with his interior lights on, surrounded by a curious fog. The light zipped away into the sky, and Frank was nowhere to be seen. Much like the Walton case, Frederick Fontaine remained missing for several days and purportedly reappeared at apartment 4:20 a.m., December 3 a.m. A media frenzy ensued, during which police reporters and UFO investigators groups all became interested. And ultimately, the three would the three come forward and groups that all became interested. Ultimately, the three would come forward and admit that the entire affair had been a hoax, and most of it left at that. Satisfied that the entire affair had been another waste of time, like most similar UFO-related claims. A point of worthy mention here is what elements arise during a UFO investigation. It would seem to point to a hoax. Skeptical investigators tend to put the case emphasizing only the fact that it supports dismissal. In one case, the fact that questions remained about what various lie detector tests he and the other witnesses had taken. As well as the involvement of the National Enquirer and possible monetary reward for proof of alien contact come to mind. This is logical, of course, since those making the extraordinary claims that the ones... let me go and read that again. One says the fact that the question remains what about various lie detector tests that he and the other witnesses have taken, as well as the involvement of the National Enquirer. Their claim, logical, of course, since making extraordinary claims are the ones left with the burden of proof, not the skeptics, who are right to question what appear to be extraordinary claims. And if a party of question is suspected of a possible hoax, and then they come forward later and admit it, continuing to pursue the case would appear to make no sense. Joseph L. Lee wrote about the Fontaine case in 1991, book Revelations, Alien Contact, and Human Deception. Book which presented what may be Vallée as most skeptical colleague of Vallée in the French UFO research community that had been in touch with Fontaine and his friends and had noted inconsistencies in the narrative, but not with the relevance to the incident so much as the claims that the entire affair had been a hoax. In essence, the group from La Gentilmar finally claimed to have a select few researchers that they were so harassed. Let's see. By reports, skeptics and UFO advocates alike that they simply admitted it was a hoax so they could be left alone. Vallée goes on to withdraw this line of inquiry, which leads to a meeting with French government official who is not named in his book, but of whom Vallée says his full name. Interesting, huh? Yeah, very interesting. Let me get back to what I was doing. Vallée goes on to follow this line of inquiry, which leads to a meeting with a French government official who is not named in the book, but of which whom Vallée says his full name is known to me. This unknown individual. Vallée says his full name is known to me. This individual explains to Vallée that the entire affair had actually been orchestrated, as outlined in the exchange, which led off the exchange below with questions and answers from the unnamed official alternating thereafter. Off the exchange below, huh? Okay, let's get to this. What happened to Fontaine? We put him to sleep, and he was kept under an altered state of high suggestibility. Where the police, the Grand Marie, aware that the operation was a hoax conducted by a high level unit? Certainly not. The behavior under such conditions was one of the things we wanted to observe. What was your role? My interest in the affair is purely personal. I had no relationship to my position in the French office. I had no relationship with my position with the French Air Force. Would it be correct to say that you deliberately created a major UFO event to find out that if you could rely on the researchers and the investigative abilities of local law enforcement? That would be a fair way to describe it. As Vallée notes in Revelations, upon asking whether the official was concerned whether he would publish this exchange, the official told him that anything you publish will simply be denied. However, of great importance here is the fact that Vallée notes the similarities between the Fontaine case and the Walton incident a few years earlier. I have met with Travis Walton and with the crew boss, Rogers. Vallée says, who had seen the craft in the beam. I am satisfied they are telling the truth as they experienced it, although I am not ready to take the hypnotic data literally for reasons I explained in detail. Previous works in contrast to Vallée's later statement when states on a question that would that they could not remember. The hypnosis did not have any. Fulton. Let me get back to where I was. Vallée's later statement when states on a question and answers page on this web that I do not recall any experience in hypnosis I could not remember before. The hypnosis did help me verbalize my experience in greater detail without being overwhelmed by anxiety, but did not help me regain my lost memories. I do not think Fontaine was abducted by extraterrestrials. Continues later in the chapter, but I do think that he is lying. I do not think he's lying here. The disappearance of Frank Fontaine is one of the most disturbing episodes in the whole history of UFOs. But it wasn't a hoax. Arguably, Vallée's considerations in relation to the Fontaine case and that of Charles Walton are very similar to my own. The trouble with the information points of interest, of course, is that as the unique though they are, they still don't provide the hard evidence we require in order to conclusively prove that there is a tangible element in such cases. They do, however, strongly imply that what could be occurring is far from being extraterrestrial in nature. Of course, the same may be said of the Bar UFO phenomenon. UFO phenomenon. Despite our best efforts over the decades, very little in the way of tangible physical evidence has been supplied in support of such claims, let alone in a way that might be conducive to the advancement of new ideas. On the other hand, while we were terribly lacking any physical proof, and there is more than enough data to trace UFO eyewitness reports to reports to suggest there's something going on here. In that sense, the case for rational inquiry has never been greater. If there is a phenomenon of other elements at work here, as many have methodologies at our disposal must be employed in order to assess which is most, if there is an undefined purpose of intention behind it. That much would seem evident. Of course, the event that UFOs represent a real, tangible phenomenon. Obviously, we still have a lot of questions to be answered. Okay, that wasn't bad. It's got that. Most famous alien abductee consultant new UFO movie Beyond the Sky. Let's see this. Let's see this. All right, this. What to go through next? Let me see this. Let me go this way. All right. The mysterious and tragic adventure of death of Amuro Takuro. Let me see here. Let me see. Okay, let me go back this way. Where's the most famous abduction? UFOs and mind-bending drugs, a connection. UFO seekers deflect the Devil's Tower seeking close encounters. You know what? Let me go over this way real quick. Whoops. Let me do this. Yeah. Let me do this over here. Do this. We're going to look at some more, let's see. Bizarre UFO encounter of William Wallace and other cases of alien paralysis. Let's see. Let's look at this. Oh, looks like it's another article I can't really read. Very, very interesting. Sorry if I'm slurring my words, folks. I'm tired again. UFOs, Taiwan alien activity, glowing lights, dice, and other ancient environments, the persistent UFO encounters of the Indian region. Let's look at this. UFO emphasis in the persistent arbor UFO presence. Another one like that. That's annoying. Maybe if I try this. Whoops. Screwed it there, huh? This right here. Wasn't paying attention right there, was I, folks? Just going around there and just let my mind wander a bit. John Mack Alien Abduction Files. Okay, let's do this now. Hope you're enjoying this show, folks. I really do. Got 4 likes. Thank you. If you've not hit that like button, please do so, folks. It really helps me fight the algorithm so more people can see my content. And the more people that see my content means my graphic novel Scumdogs comes out to you all the sooner. As well as hit that bell and hit the part of the bell that gives you official notifications. As well as please go share this video out on Twitter, Facebook, and Gab. The general alien abduction process, a general overview. The 71 Portland Park UFO incident, a case of alien abduction. The Grandilla Hills alien abduction case. How annoying. I'm trying to find one I can watch here. The alien case, the controversial alien abduction case of Leonard Carty. For some odd reason, I keep getting these not free articles. The paranormal encounters that were actually alien abduction. Annoying. I'm gonna have to go back over here since we're getting kind of bored of this. Let me go with this. That's our vintage photo shows UFO taking it off at high speed, huh? UFOs and horror have always gone hand in hand in Hollywood ever since 1951. Thing from Another World, maybe. Let's see this. UFOs float to do seeing close encounters. Let me go over here. We'll go over here. Walton abduction soil suggests anomalous event. We looked at Travis one before. Let me go over here, though. Witness Travis one withdraws his account. There's other alien abduction encounters, so I need to look it up here. UFOs and mind-altering drugs, a connection. Let me go over here. Yeah, let's looking for this. Let me do this real quick, and we'll keep going forward. When aliens stopped terrorism, the great sense of the changing face of UFOlogy. The great silence, right? All right, let me try this again. Let's see. Let's see what to look at first. Let's see. Did I read this one before? Let's see it. For a number of decades, people claim that they have been taken aboard the unusual flying craft. Known those who study against planetary phenomena. Yeah, I looked at this one. Let's try this one. Alien abduction from the 1970s and 1990s, Part 1. My recent article on the Bay Barn Hill abduction incident in September 1961 provoked quite a bit of feedback at Facebook and my blog. So with that in mind, I thought I would share with you some of the primary figures in the abduction field from the 1970s onward. The person who largely and almost single-handedly kickstarted the first part of this story of genetic manipulation, well, yeah, by aliens for the human race by advanced extraterrestrials by a Virginia-born painter named Bud Hopkins. Hopkins' 1981 book, Missing Time, which really set the cat among the pigeons, though Hopkins had been working in the field in the 1970s. The abduction stories of Betty and Barney Hill, Travis Walton, Herbert Schremer, and Charles Hickson, Calvin Parker were undeniably fascinating, and they most assuredly made the UFO research community sit up and take notice of something astounding. People were being kidnapped and subjected to intrusive and frightening medical procedures by creatures from other worlds. There is, however, an important issue that needs to be stressed, and which demonstrates how and why the sheer scale of the alien abduction phenomenon remained underappreciated until Hopkins was on the scene in the late 70s and early 80s. Sorry about my live stream right now, folks. I thought it basically was a little dead. So feel free to leave me a few chats because I love to hear from you guys. The Hill case occurred in 1961. Herbert Schumer was taken aboard a UFO in 1967. Huxton's and Parker's abduction was in 1973. Charles Walton was in 1975. That's just 4 cases across 14 years. Yes, there were other less well-profiled abductions throughout that time period, but the image that these incidents provoked was one which suggested abductions were things that occurred only now and again. For many, it was not a case of aliens routinely abducting people on a regular basis all across the planet. Well, actually, it was, but it was Hopkins whose abduction research began in 1976 that we have to thank for demonstrating that what appeared to be a few random events were actually nothing in the search. For Hopkins, it was a downright epidemic. More disturbing, Hopkins' work showed that, in many cases, abductions did not begin when people matured and were adults. They commenced in the formative years of childhood and very often ran through numerous generations of the same families. In some cases, Hopkins found people were being implanted with small devices for purposes that no one could ascertain. Maybe they were designed to tag people, and they used to track the abductees throughout their lives, and no matter where they might relocate to on the planet. A far more sinister theory was that the implants were designed to do nothing less than alter the behavior of the abductees. At no time at all, the days of Betty and Barney Hill were overthrown by fears of alien orchestrated Manchurian candidate and hypnotically controlled abductees. Hopkins' early work, as published in Missing Time in 1981, also showed the seeds for something else, a deep and nagging suspicion that part of the alien abduction agenda, and just perhaps all of it, was based around matters of a reproductive nature. Hopkins asked for the issue, what if the UFO's occupants are taking something from their captives? He answered his own question with the following: we may indeed possess something, a natural resource of an element, a genetic structure. All right, that an alien culture might desire to use. For example, as raw material, Hopkins may well have been right on target with his reference to genetic structure and raw materials. Hopkins' book proved to be a major talking point within the field of ufology and firmly set the scene for what was to follow. But Hopkins continued to intensively investigate alien abduction claims in the 1980s, and to the extent that a clear pattern of DNA fingerprinting, the extraction of ova and sperm from abductees, and suspicions of mass alien-driven operation to use human race in some huge genetic-driven program took shape. It was, however, in 1987 that matters really came to head. In the year, Hopkins' follow-up book, Intruders, which published and which told the story of alien and abductee Kathy Draver, it was a book that reinforced the scenarios detailed in Missing Time. Hopkins continued his research and died in 2011. All right. I got that one done. Yeah. So what do you think about that? Thanks to Bud Hopkins here, we know more about Missing Time, how aliens might be stealing from us, either DNA or maybe implanting women with alien embryos and then harvesting them later on. What do you think about that? That's also another good story and point to talk about. All right. World's most famous alien abductee consulted a new UFO movie, Beyond the Sky. Let's look at this real quick. Right. UFOs and mind-altering drugs, connection? Maybe. Let's look at this, huh? In a recent article in his magazine, UFO Conjecture blog, Rich Reynolds addressed the mayor of UFOs and LSD. The article is titled LSD Hallucinations, UFOs. You can find it here. Rich, as most of you know, that notorious CIA program, MKUltra, that in the 1959 experimented with LSD on military personnel and volunteers. I've always thought that the Pensacola encounter, Hopkins, Parker, and Charles Walton's abductors may have been drug-induced. Having known Rich for more than a few years, I should note that he has a deep interest in the possibility that some significant UFO incidents may have had a hallucinogen or some kind at their core. We're not, however, talking about using LSD for recurring purposes. Instead, we're talking about situations which may have been utilized by military and intelligence services to increase fake UFO event. The reason may be to try and gauge the extent to which the human mind can be implanted. The fake alien encounters as a means to make us believe we have extraterrestrials among us, when perhaps we don't. Determine how the controversial questions are many of the answers. The answers are far. Yeah, lost my way. To make us believe we have extraterrestrials among us. Yeah, if they perform a fake UFO encounter and stuff like that, perhaps among us, and perhaps we don't. To determine how easy it might be to create a bogus extraterrestrial event, the controversial questions are many. The answers are far less. So, what can we say? Although that there are a surprising number of cases on record, I'll just might fall in one of the more above categories. I'll share the three with you. Well, I'll start with a man named Ofro Alincio. He was one of the controversial people who claimed largely in the 50s characters were very human-like ETs. They were known as the Swiss Brothers, and for they were innocent to Lucci. They were titled contactees. And Jalucci's, the aliens were here to save us from self-destruction, as we were most of the Space Brothers of that area. As were most of the Space Brothers of that era. It was known on Jalucci started talking about the Space Brothers and sisters too being communists. Great, that's all we need. And also claiming meetings with mysterious human characters who went in. Lucci inserted the communist angle into his lectures, and that things got very strange. It was when that Lucci got a weird visitor and a weird experience too. And Lucci claimed that one particular evening in December 1954, he traveled to one at diner 29 Palms, California. The reason was to meet with an old and dramatic character, Adam, who wanted to discuss the Lucci's experience. Although Adam appeared human, and Charlize wasn't all sure that the case things got weird when, as they sat and claimed, Adam asked Angelucci to take a pill, which he passed to him incredibly. Angelucci did exactly that. He put it in his mouth and knocked it back with a mysterious drink prepared by Adam. It wasn't long before Angelucci decided to space out. He began to hallucinate nothing less than a little woman, and I do mean little as just inches tall, dancing in his drink. Reality had gone right out the window, and on top of that, Angelucci was aware of two men in military uniforms sitting close by. They were intently watching every move that Angelucci made, and they caused Angelucci to spill the beans on his connections to the Space Brothers. The matter of communism. Maybe someone in government wanted to find out what Lucci really knew about communist aliens, or maybe it was a case of concerns that Lucci was being used wittingly or not to. All right. It's Brazilian man. My alternate. Where was I? Willing or not to promote communism by the UFO subject, whatever the answer, it seems likely that Angelucci had been drugged by something that caused him to tell all that he knew, and in the process fall into a deeply drugged state. Then there is the matter of Antonio Villa-Boras, a Brazilian man. He claimed late 1957 to have had wild sex with an equally wild babe from the stars after having been kidnapped onto a UFO an early alien abduction. Yep, or maybe not in the late 1970s. The aforementioned Rich Reynolds had contacted her, very, very controversial by all accounts, and like on likable figure named Bosco Novak, who was still had links to the world of intelligence, who claimed that Villa's boss affair was not what it appeared to be. He told the Rich that when Rally Villa boss according to Nerd Logic, the UFO that Villas-Boas saw over his family's property was really a helicopter. Not only that, but Villas-Boas was supposedly hit by some kind of mind-altering aerosol that spray that quickly placed him in an altered state after the pilot of the helicopter flew right over him. As for the girl from the Star, she was said to have really been a hooker, a girl hired on to take on Villas-Boas on the closest encounter after all. Well, closest encounter of all. But it was all a ruse, a mind-bending event designed to fabricate a UFO incident. A UFO incident, huh? Like it or not, the fact that Villas-Boas, in his own words, suggests strongly that he was indeed taken on board a helicopter. Red Villas-Boas, which carefully the craft, he said, was like an elongated egg on the top of the craft. There was something which was revolving at great speed and also giving off a powerful fluorescent reddish light. Rotor blades, probably yes, and the craft took it to the skies. It made a loud noise, a sort of beat, which is perfect description of the noise associated with a helicopter. Put all those vectors together and it sounds very much like the helicopter. Well, much like a helicopter. Okay. Interesting. In this article, Richard mentioned the famous October 73 alien abduction of Charles Hickson and Calvin Parker at Pensacola, Mississippi. The case has become classic in alien abduction circles. It is the little known fact that just a few miles from where Parker and Hickson were taken is a stretch of land called Horn Island. In the later stages of the Second World War, the military used Horn Island, placed where biological warfare research was undertaken. Mariners were brought to an end when the Second World War was over. The official line is that research in the area was canceled. There are, however, local tales of covert operations and experiments into mind manipulation as in the early 1970s and only around 10 to 20 miles away from newer facilities. In terms of what may have specifically been used in these operations, fingers point in the direction of BZ, or to give it a correct name, two consistently benzene light. Most well-known name is buzz. It can provoke significant hallucinations. Is it possible that some classic UFO events were actually nothing of the sort, but were a very strange way? Were weirder in a very strange way? Maybe, maybe not. Who knows? But all of it was very interesting, don't you think, folks? We looked at alien abduction cases tonight and had some fun. Have you guys hit that like button for me? Yeah. Now, if you haven't hit that like button for me yet, folks, please do so. It really helps me fight the algorithm. Right? As well as hit that bell and hit the part of the bell that gives you all future notifications. Please go and subscribe to my YouTube channel, Read Comics That Are Bad For You. Okay, the there is misspelled. It's THERE. Make sure you're still subscribed. Hit that like button for me because it helps me fight the algorithm. And please go share this video out on Twitter and Facebook and anywhere else. Please go over to Stitch Together Pics. Stitch Together Pics is a YouTube channel hosted by the Maniacal Cinephile. You're going to love his reviews of movies. He does some great reviews. He plays this character called the Maniacal Cinephile, who basically has multiple personality disorders. You're not just getting one character, you're getting a whole plethora of them. Go and subscribe to Creepy Little Book, as well as go over and subscribe to, go and subscribe to Stitch Together Pics and go over and subscribe to Creepy Little Book. Creepy Little Book is like the Art Bell radio show. He releases small videos talking about high strangeness, but he also does live streams every night. He live streams on weekdays at 12:30 a.m. and on weekends at 10 o'clock p.m. He talks about aliens and ghosts, and you learn so much from watching Creepy Little Book's live streams. They are great. As well as please go over and please remember, folks, I'll be back again tomorrow around 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock or 11 o'clock p.m. for another live stream, so be sure to come back again then. I'm Chris Williams from the Scumdogs Kennel. Thank you all for joining me.